music, in addition to rhythm, which we talked about earlier, is pitch. And I'm going to use the example from the Beethoven First Symphony as a way to illustrate how composers have taken a series of pitches, the highs and the lows of music, as you know from your music education. And probably a good way to demonstrate that this is something that we as musicians do all of the time by way of warm-up, and that is to play scales. It's the best way to get in touch with every note that's available on the instrument, to see how it's feeling and see how in tune it is. So, for instance, if we take some of the instruments in the orchestra, for instance, the cello, and we have a, here's the cello. Would you play a scale for us, please? Or we have, in the woodwind section, we have the flute, who could also play a scale for us. And in the brass section, we have the French horn, who can also play a scale for us. And the composers could have the choice of choosing a string instrument like the violin, or they could choose a wind instrument like the bassoon, and he could also play a scale for us. But then we have an instrument in the brass family, like the trumpet. And we have the trumpet also play a scale, which I'm sure, I've heard her warm up on these scales all the time before rehearsals. Composers do more than just write scales, but Beethoven uses the scale as his basis for exploring an entire movement of a piece. And you'll hear these scale patterns running all the way through this last movement of the First Symphony of Beethoven. He starts out with one of the devices in music, which is tempo, and of course that's the pulse of music. He starts out very slow in the tempo, having the notes of the scale, first 3 notes of the scale, then 4, then 5, then a whole series leading up to the 7th note of the scale, and then in a burst of energy, he goes quickly through the entire scale and continues that through the rest of the instruments of the orchestra. So this is a very clever introduction of the scale-like patterns that Beethoven used in this symphony. The Symphony Number 1, the last movement of the Symphony Number 1 by Ludwig van Beethoven. wonderful audience. As Doug mentioned earlier, these concerts we have been doing for 50 years. In that amount of time, it was started by the Racine Junior League in 1962, and it was taken over by the Women's Auxiliary of the Symphony, the Women's Association of the Racine Symphony, and we've been able to keep this going, and it's been estimated that we have performed for 85,000 fifth graders over those 50 years, and I think that is a reason to applaud.